teacher. Welcome to Practice Intimacy. This is the place to be to learn all about love, sex, and how to have the best relationships you possibly can. My name is Jami Lynn. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and yesterday I was talking to one of my couples about non-attachment. And the reason we got onto this subject is this is a couple who tend to get into little bickering type arguments, this kind of argument that just slowly corrodes their trust and compassion for each other. And it really leads to more guarded and defensive interactions between them, and what they feel in the end is just a sense of disconnection. So what I wanted to share with you today is, first, some Tantric principles that explain this pattern of defensiveness and bickering. Second, how to tell whether you're falling into this pattern in your relationship. And then third, we're going to talk about 3 things you can do to get out of this problematic sort of relational dance. But first, a little story. Imagine a couple is going out of town and they need to leave at 5 a.m. to make their flight. One partner is a planner. They've already packed. They're looking at how long it's going to take to get to the airport. Whereas the other partner is enjoy the flow. Let's be in relaxation as we move through life sort of person. And I'm sure you see where this is going. We've all been in situations like this. One partner wants to get to the airport at a certain time, and they feel anxious if they're running late by their standards. And the other person does not like feeling pressured, and they want to be more flexible as they experience getting to the airport. And so starts the bickering. Please try to be on time tomorrow. Could you just relax? We're not going to be late. We're not going to miss our flight. What else might they say? We might if you don't hurry, or as they're on their way to the airport, like, slow down, you're driving like crazy. And then cut to the airport terminal, and the couple is sitting frustrated, resentful, and disconnected. This sounds familiar, right? This is a time value conflict. But I could substitute any number of conflicts into this example. It could be disagreements about how to act in social settings. It could be disagreements about how to raise your children, or about how much sex needs to be happening, or even how to load the dishwasher. Moments of conflict between your way of doing life and your partner's way of doing life are extremely common. But it's one of the biggest problems I see when I'm working with couples. And so what's the Tantric idea that describes this common relational problem? It's the pull between raga and desha, clinging and avoiding. So people's innate desire is to have things their way. It's nice to get our way. The person who's anxious to get to the airport at a certain time wants to feel less anxious. The person who wants a flexible and relaxed trip to the airport, they want a peaceful flow experience. And here's the thing, they are both right. They're each trying to meet their own needs based on their personal preferences, so many words, personal preferences and values. The problem is their strategies for how to get what they want is conflicting. One person's strategy is to manage time strictly, and the other person's strategy is to not worry about time. One person's desire does not matter more than the other person's, and one strategy is not necessarily better than the other. There's simply different ways of taking care of yourself. Now here's the trap we fall into in these moments. My way of doing this is right. When we fall into the trap of thinking we're right, we're telling our partner, if you would just see the benefit and truth in my way, everything would be better. You're each trying to meet your desire by trying to convince the other person to do the thing that would make you feel most comfortable. And look, I'm not saying you shouldn't ask for what you want. I'm a huge believer in speaking up for your desires and making clear requests. That's really important. Where this becomes a problem, though, is when you get stuck in the losing strategy of being right and trying to tell another adult how they should act. There is no absolute truth about what's right. At any given moment, what's right for me is different from what's right for me is different from what's right for you, which is what's different than what's right for your person, your partner, or someone else you're in relationship with. And it's actually patronizing to try and impose your way of doing life on another person. Unfortunately, we often do this to each other in relationship. Not to be mean, but because dominant culture struggles to tolerate difference and complexity. We actually have a hard time letting go of being right because that's what we've been taught culturally, at least in North America and kind of all over the world. So what can you actually do about this? Here's 3 things you can start practicing right now to help yourself and your relationship out of the corrosive, who's right type of bickering. First is humble self-awareness. Second, emotional regulation. And third, boundaries. So humble self-awareness means doubting your rightness at any given moment. Asking yourself questions like, what need am I trying to meet? Am I being rigid in my way of thinking right now? How defensive do I feel in this moment? What am I afraid will happen if I don't get what I want right now? And is there another way that I could meet this need? One that doesn't disregard my partner's needs in this moment. If you want to try a formal practice in humble self-awareness, I suggest checking out Byron Katie's The Work. She has a great, really formalized way of doing this kind of humble self-awareness. The next possibility would be emotional regulation. This is such an amazing skill. It's an unsung hero of relational health. And if you want your relationship to thrive, learn how to catch yourself in dysregulation and practice self-soothing. For example, our emotional regulation could look like paying attention to anxiety about missing the flight, naming it, witnessing the feeling, offering compassion to yourself. Or paying attention to the pressure you feel when you're rushed, noticing the shame it brings up about timeliness, offering compassion and kindness to those parts of yourself. Compassion is soothing, and when you self-soothe, it takes the intensity out of your protective stances. It takes the defensiveness out of your way of being. And regulation actually brings more compassion, not only to you, but to your partner too. It brings up greater creativity and kindness to any interaction. And then the final skill would be boundaries. So in this case, when there's a disagreement about, I want to do things this way, I want to do things this way, a boundary might look like, babe, I love you. I'm so glad you have your way of doing things. I want to be really clear that in order to take care of myself, I'm going to have to do things differently. I'm just going to go back to our airport example. Babe, I love you. I love you so much. And in order to take care of myself, so that I'm not anxious and grumpy and mad at you on the plane, I'm going to make sure I leave the house at 5. If you need to call an Uber and leave later, that is totally fine. But I want you to know that I'm going to leave the house by 5. And if you're not in the car, then you will have to find your own ride. That is a boundary conversation. That is setting a very clear and intentional boundary, which boundaries are always about what I'm going to do, not about what you need to do. So I'm saying, if at 5 a.m. you are not in the car with me, babe, I'm going to leave. That's my boundary. Whatever you choose to do to get to the airport is great. Do it. Take an Uber. Awesome. But know that in order to take care of myself, I'm going to leave at 5 a.m. Boundaries are challenging. This is such an important skill, but it's not something that we are really taught how to do in our culture. Boundaries are often attempts to try and make the other person behave in the way that we want them to behave. That's just the way that we've talked about boundaries in our culture for so long that we're doing it wrong. So if you want to get really good at doing boundaries in a loving, compassionate, clear way that is not intrusive on your partner's ability to choose, to be autonomous, if you want to learn how to do that, check out my course, Boundaries, How to Create, that's not it, Boundaries, Create Your Peace. And I walk you through 4 different kinds of boundaries that are really, really important, from physical boundaries, psychological boundaries, containing boundaries, all the way to this boundary I just gave an example of, which is more of the executed action type boundary where I'm going to do something. And yeah, if you're interested in checking that out, you can find the link below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like this video. Please remember to share it with anyone you think could benefit from hearing about this dynamic of bickering and how to get out of it. And I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.